Something unexpected is happening in the global automotive industry. The legendary German company Porsche, a symbol of engineering perfection, speed, and prestige, is facing the deepest crisis in its entire history. According to Handelsblatt, the company's profit has collapsed by 99% over the past year. And this is not just a temporary decline, it is a catastrophe that could threaten the very existence of a brand once considered the benchmark of German quality. For the first time in decades, Porsche factories are experiencing downtime, and suppliers report mass contract cuts. According to Financial Times Deutschland, company executives have held several emergency meetings discussing a scenario that until recently seemed impossible: the partial or complete sale of the company to foreign investors. There are several reasons for this collapse, each deadly in its own way for the European auto industry. First, the overall decline of the German economy, which is sinking deeper into recession. The energy crisis caused by the war in Ukraine has made car production incredibly expensive. Electricity and gas bills have increased fourfold in some plant divisions, and inflation in Germany is breaking records of recent decades. Second, the European car industry is facing an unprecedented level of competition from China. Chinese electric cars produced by companies such as BYD, NIO, and XPeng have literally flooded the European market. Their vehicles are not only cheaper, but often more technologically advanced, with autonomous systems, next-generation batteries, and built-in AI assistance. All of this comes in a modern, minimalist design, and Europeans, once loyal to expensive brands, are now switching en masse to Chinese cars. According to Reuters Automotive, over the past 2 years, the share of Chinese electric vehicles in the European Union has grown from 2% to 22%, and the trend continues. For Porsche, this is a fatal blow. A company that for decades relied on image, luxury, and power has found itself unprepared for a world where battery capacity and software update speed matter more than horsepower. But the most alarming factor is another one. China, which controls most of the supply chain for rare earth elements, has begun restricting their exports. These materials, lithium, nickel, graphite, neodymium, form the basis of batteries, without which electric vehicle production is impossible. According to a report by the European Commission, more than 80% of the components for Porsche Taycan batteries and future electric models come from China. Losing this access would mean an effective paralysis of production lines. If Beijing decides to cut off exports, German car giants will shut down within months, said an anonymous source from Germany's Ministry of Economy in an interview with Der Spiegel. And it appears China is doing exactly that. According to experts from the Mercator Institute for China Studies, Beijing is pursuing a long-term strategy of economic pressure, deliberately depriving European brands of access to key resources in order to later, once they are weakened, offer to buy them out. Internal sources in Berlin confirm that Chinese investors have already tried several times to negotiate the purchase of stakes in Porsche, but the German government blocked the deals, fearing the loss of a national treasure. A former official from Germany's Ministry of Industry, who wished to remain anonymous, said that as early as 2023, Chinese diplomats hinted at the possibility of a strategic partnership, promising investments and access to battery technology. But the Germans refused. China did not forget. And now that the situation has changed, Beijing is acting with cold precision. In October, Chinese state media began actively publishing articles about the overvaluation of European brands and the inevitable shift of German industry under Asian influence. Economists call this the informational preparation of the ground. Everything indicates that China is preparing for the next step, an economic takeover, and Porsche may become the first major trophy. According to Bloomberg, several Chinese investment funds affiliated with state structures have already prepared proposals to acquire controlling stakes in Porsche. Formally, they operate through intermediaries in Singapore and Hong Kong, but the ultimate beneficiaries are Chinese state corporations. The German government remains silent for now, but behind the scenes in the Bundestag, there is talk of a crisis of national pride. If Porsche collapses, it will become a symbol of the end of the era of German industrial power. But there is a deeper context to this story. China does not just want to buy Porsche. It wants to break the very logic of global industry, in which Europe dictated the standards of technology, design, and prestige. Today, it is the opposite. Beijing sets the rules, and Berlin is forced to adapt. We see a strategy spanning decades, where China gradually takes control of all key elements of the European economy, writes The Economist. Experts note that the current Porsche crisis is not an isolated case, but part of a systemic process. Already BMW, Volkswagen, and Mercedes-Benz are under threat, dependent on the Chinese market and supplies almost as much. But Porsche has become the first victim, possibly because it is an iconic brand, and its fall will be symbolic. According to insiders at Porsche AG, the central office in Stuttgart is currently considering 3 scenarios: partial production cuts, asset sales, or a strategic partnership with Asian investors. And although no one speaks of it officially, the likelihood of a deal with China grows by the day. Everything indicates that this is exactly what Beijing aimed for. While German officials debated subsidies, China was building entire industrial ecosystems around electric vehicles, reducing costs, and controlling logistics and resources. Now those efforts are bearing fruit. In this chess game, China is playing white. If the situation does not change, within a year or 2, the legendary Porsche may come under the control of Chinese investors. Officially as a partnership to save the brand, but in reality, as Europe's capitulation to a new economic reality. When this happens, many will realize that this was not just a crisis of a single company, it was the moment the era of European technological leadership ended. In Berlin, panic is growing. At closed sessions of the Bundestag, emergency measures to support the automotive industry are being discussed, but even within the coalition there is no unity. The Ministry of Finance opposes large-scale subsidies, stating that Germany cannot save everyone at once, while members of the industry committee openly say the crisis is systemic and aid to Porsche alone is insufficient. Meanwhile, Die Welt reports that Chancellor Merz has instructed the development of an anti-crisis package for automakers, which could include partial nationalization of some companies to prevent their takeover by foreign investors. But even this step sparks debate. Some politicians argue Germany cannot allow its legendary brands to fall, while others warn that state intervention will only delay the inevitable. Against this backdrop, China continues to act with unprecedented confidence. In Beijing, statements from German officials are met with cold irony. The state agency Xinhua publishes articles claiming the European era is over and Germany must get used to the new reality of the global market. Even the most devoted brand fans are beginning to doubt. If Porsche truly comes under Chinese control, it will no longer be the Porsche we knew, writes Automotor on Sport. This statement captures the essence of what is happening. Europe is losing not just a company, but a part of its identity, a symbol of an era when German reliability and engineering set the global standard. That standard is now collapsing before our eyes. If in the coming months no miracle occurs, no new technologies, new supplies, or political agreement with Beijing, Porsche risks becoming the first great brand to fall in the new global economic war. Silent, without gunfire, yet merciless. And perhaps this fall will mark the starting point of a new reality in which even the strongest no longer control the game.